Alright guys, is my Jeep too tall now? We've added a bunch of new things to the Jeep that have increased its height fairly substantially. Well, the most obvious is the Metal Cloak Adventure Rack system, which we just put on, which has definitely added some additional height to the Jeep. On top of that, we've got the Free Spirit Evolution rooftop tent, and we just put new taller Clayton Overland 3.5-inch springs in it, which has brought the Jeep up a couple of inches. So after all of these additional mods, we're sitting at about 8 feet now. And if I get a little closer, you can get a bit more perspective, but I can't even get my hand to the top of the Jeep now. I can't even reach the top of the rooftop tent. That's just how tall the Jeep is now. I think it's time to bring things down a little bit. But before we do, let's talk a little bit about why you don't want too tall of a Jeep. The more you raise your Jeep up, the more weight you put on top of it, the higher the center of gravity is, which is going to give you less on-road stability, and it's going to feel a bit more wobbly. But as well, on the trails, when you're going through things and your Jeep starts to roll and you get through off-camber stuff, your Jeep can feel a lot more sketchy, and you're not going to be able to have as much angle before you actually flip over. Another challenge that you can have when your Jeep is too tall. Around here, we wheel in a lot of trees and there's a lot of overhead branches, and so you end up hitting stuff more often when you have a taller Jeep, because there's a lot of fallen trees over the trails or branches that haven't been cleared because everything else coming through is shorter. And as well, for me, I have to take a ferry every time I leave the island, and being over 7 feet means I gotta go on the lower deck with all the trucks. It's harder to make a reservation, and I can't use my assured loading passes. So I'm going to try to bring the rooftop tent down a little bit. I'm not going to get it under 7 feet, but we've got a couple new parts from Metal Cloak that's going to help us with that. But the big one here is these are the rails that we've been using. Now, when we put these rails on, we weren't sure exactly which rails to use because Metal Cloak had not made this Adventure Rack system for a soft top yet. So these are the rails for the Sky Touch or One Touch Sky Roof. Basically the hard top with the opening soft top in the middle that accordions back, and you need lots of room for those accordions to stack up as they go back. Now, the reason why we went with these bars was that originally Metal Cloak's other bars for the hard top didn't have any riser here at the back on the rear hoop. And so they just went straight across and they would have hit the soft top. Since making our last video and installing all of this, Metal Cloak has redesigned the hardtop bars to have a little bit of a rise, so they'll just clear the soft top now, but it also gives you more room if you have the freedom panels on your hardtop and you want to take them up and out and you don't want to hit those rails and you want to get them out nice and easy. As well with this rack, if you have a hardtop, you can pull the hardtop straight back and it gives you a bit more room to do that. But for us, we're going to install these new revised rails because they are a few inches lower, and so it's going to allow us to mount the rooftop tent lower. Now, the other thing is we have a different mounting solution from Adventure Rack Systems as well, which is going to eliminate these crossbars and clamps that are also adding a couple inches to the Jeep. So we're going to get those installed today, and hopefully at the end of this, the rooftop tent is going to be sitting right on the new rails, really tight and low, and as well, the rails are going to be even lower. So I'm hoping to pick up around 4 to 6 inches, or lose around 4 to 6 inches of height with changing out these couple pieces. So here are the new rails. This is the front, so you can see there's less of a bend here, or less of a height, less height coming off the front hoop. And then around to the back, there's just a little bit of an angle here just to bring this up just a little bit. This is all we need. So this used to be straight on the hardtops, and they've updated this now for the hardtops, and we can use it for the soft top. So it's great because if you put the rack on your Jeep and you got hardtop or soft top or switch between the two, you don't need to get new crossbars or just remove them all together. You can keep them on there. You can see just how much less height this is going to give us. And then we've got these new spreader bars here that we're going to attach. And this is going to allow us to mount our rooftop tent super flush right to these rails and have no extra height. As well, we have a couple of these grab handles that we're going to mount onto the rear hoop so that it makes climbing up onto the back of the Jeep a lot easier. And these just clamp onto any of the 2-inch tubing that you have. So you can actually mount these to the rails on the side if you wanted, or you can mount them onto the rear. I have 2 of them. I kind of want 4 of them. So we'll see. I'm gonna decide where we're gonna mount these. But first, we need to figure out how to get these rails on and the rooftop tent mounted without taking the rooftop tent off. Because today, it's only me working on the Jeep. And, well, the rooftop tent weighs about 170 pounds, so there's no way I can take that on and off on my own. I don't have any sort of gantry system to pull it on and off, so I'm gonna have to see if I can get those rails mounted underneath and then slowly disassemble the current rails and drop it down. That should be fun, but we'll see how it goes. And before we get started, we've got a huge trip planned. The whole Dirty and Dangerous crew is going out to the Rocky Mountains this coming weekend, which is part of why I want to get this tent done before we go. And so we're gonna have a couple huge adventure vlogs coming up after this. And so if you guys want to see more of those videos as well, do hit that subscribe button and do check out dirtyanddangerous.com if you want to grab some shirts or key tags or no hats. There's no hats, but stickers, and support the channel, support the adventures, making these videos, all that kind of fun stuff. Appreciate it a lot. All right, let's get started trying to get these old rails off, or maybe get the new rails on first and go from there. So what I've done is very methodically remove the brackets off the back, just basically loosen them off so I can slide in the new rail, clamp this on, because I don't want this rear hoop to just, you know, try to fall backwards once there's nothing clamped on. So it's lightly clamped on the front, and I lightly clamped it, well, lightly clamped on the back, lightly clamped on the front, and now I've taken the clamp pieces off the taller rails because I've got one rail holding it all together. So that was kind of the first step, and I'll get the clamps put on the other rail. Now you can kind of get a difference, or get an idea of the height difference between the two rails. So these are the old mounts that we're taking off. The lower half bolts to the cross rail, and the top half bolts to this rail that we then bolt and secure the rooftop tent to. So we're just taking these out. I've got the new rail. It's a full rail width lower, so about 2 inches lower altogether. And then we're gonna have the rooftop tent sit right on this rail and clamp it on with the spreader bar. So we're just getting the last of these off, and you get a good idea of just how this system works. But you've got the front to back rail and the side crossbar, and it kind of hooks everything together, and then your rooftop tent clamps down on the crossbar. So that adds a bit of height, and that's what we're just taking out. Just taking the last one out now. And I've got the rooftop tent crossbars sitting on the higher rail, which I think if I put something on top of this rail, boost this up a little bit, I'll be able to pull these bars out, and then we can drop it down. And now that we don't have these, bolt that spreader bar on. All right, guys, there we go. We have finished. We've dropped the rooftop tent down on the new bars, and it's quite a bit lower than what it was before. Let's grab a measuring tape, and I'm gonna just see how much lower the Jeep is, but I'd probably say around 5 inches. Quick little walkthrough of what we did. We removed the higher bars and bolted these new bars on, and I strategically, by myself with some sketchy wood blocks, I was able to do this whole thing without removing the rooftop tent. Really hard to see, but we've got the new bar that goes across underneath, basically sandwiching this bar together between the rooftop tent and the crossbar. So rooftop tent's nice and secure, but now the entire tent's sitting on this bar, so it's actually more stable. That took me about 4 hours or so. And right at the end, I just bolted these extra handles on the back so that I can
put my foot here and climb up. And now it's easier to unlatch my rooftop tent. I can use my Warren Elite bumper to step on, grab the handle, up we go. And I mounted it flush with the back, which I think works pretty good. Looks really solid, nice and slick. And you've kind of got this here at the front, so it kind of has a nice taper. Hopefully that helps with any wind noise, but it seems to fit a little bit better. It just looks really good on there. There's a shot from the front before we grab the tape measure and go see how high we are. Standing here in front of it now, I can get my hand easily over the top. Definitely lower than it was before. And just measuring that from the very top, looks like we're just over 7 feet 6 inches. Maybe about 5.5 inches in height we took off. So not quite where I need to be at 7 feet to get on the upper deck of the ferry. But as far as trail clearance and lowering the center of gravity, I'll take it. I'm going to do a full walkthrough of the Metal Cloak Adventure rack system in a few weeks after that Rocky Mountain Adventure, so stay tuned if you want to have a bunch of your questions answered. I know you guys have left me a lot of questions on the install video and the last couple of vlogs about it. I'm going to do my best to answer all of those, so keep an eye out for that video, and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. And if you enjoyed this video, as always guys, leave a like, and I'll see you guys next week in the Rocky Mountains.